Good afternoon. Absolutely. Thank you for your time to listen to cybersecurity instance that I have prepared for you today. As you already know, my name is Paula Januszkiewicz, and what I'm doing for a living gets purely related with cybersecurity, meaning I've been doing penetration tests for the past 17 years and seeing how cybersecurity is shifting from certain year to another and what kind of challenges companies are experiencing every day. I'm technically not working for Microsoft, but Microsoft is our close partner. Our company, being already 13 years old in the market, is the one that cooperates closely with Microsoft on different cybersecurity solutions, also helping customers to grow in that sphere. So I'm also speaking at the various conferences, so absolutely happy to share some insights from the tools, from different researches that we've done. But what my job is going to be for today is to show you basically how cybersecurity not only shifted, but what is possibly the future of cybersecurity solutions and threats for the upcoming year. As you can see in the following slides, when we look at the first absolutely mind-blowing statistic, which is the increase by 1,318%, that is the value that we see over here in terms of increase with ransomware in the financial industry. This is absolutely mind-blowing, and I would say not in that amount unexpected. When we look into other statistics, for example, here you are able to see that 94% of malware is actually delivered by the email. And that is something that we are also seeing and observing from our customers' perspective, because I also do consultancy, even though I have a business role. And eventually, I must tell you one thing. We have never seen so many attacks like during the pandemics. Even though it was not allowed to travel, we had to travel to help our customers to technically recover their data because they was encrypted, for example, by ransomware. But at the same time, there were various attacks where the hackers were sitting there and a customer was wondering, are they actually experiencing an attack or not? Also, when we look at some other statistics, over 80% of attacks are financially motivated, which means that is something that is not really stopping hackers, but definitely encouraging them to move forward. Because I'm a geek and I'm also a technical person, I would like to show you today a bunch of attacks, how these are happening, so that we can discuss some nice conclusions, what kind of implementations, what kind of options we got in order to be a little bit more secure. So first attack is the kill chain that I have prepared. And what you're seeing over here is simply on the left side, the hacker's console when we are setting up just simply a listener on the port 443. And on the right side, you are able to see a typical point of entry nowadays, which is a phishing email. And users gonna open up that attachment, that is Excel. We already have lots of preventions against technically running the child processes from Excel. In this particular case, typical situation, there's a one big green button, and if anywhere user clicks on it, that seamlessly is gonna connect to the hacker. We're gonna show over here a window that's gonna be responsible for that. That's this window, just for you to see that that's happening, but that can be totally hidden. And user will not even know what is going on. If we look into details of that macro underneath, here is one big button, and we are downloading everything from the resources secureacademy.com as a text file. So that is even better if we want to hide from the antivirus solutions. And at the end, we are converting the text file, decoding it into an executable, and then basically we execute it. On the left side, on the hacker's console, you guys are able to see that we are already that user. So who am I shows us privileges that the user has. It doesn't have to be too privileged. It's going to be actually little. And I'm here, Paula. Now, the next part that I would like to show you, it's going to be the ways of how we are able to escalate to privileged account. And here we're going to download an escalation script, and that particular script will allow me to search for misconfigurations, not vulnerabilities, but misconfigurations, where, for example, I'm able to upload a DLL. So in this case, it's going to be the DLL for Python. So let's do it. Here, I'm executing that script. It's working in a moment. We're going to set up the execution policy, and our job is going to be to scan where I can inject the DLL. Now, at that moment, it's going to be, as we mentioned, Python. And Python, why Python? Oh, just because, for example, in this setup, we've got a DLL hijacking possibility, where in a Python folder, we have a DLL that is actually, as you see, loaded by the task scheduler upon startup. And that is super cool, because if we've got a possibility to override it, we are at the same time able to inject our bad DLL and therefore become a more privileged user. So here, we're going to do exactly this. So we're going to download a malicious DLL, and we're going to override the existing operating system DLL to make sure that, of course, we've got our DLL planted. Now, the next part over here is going to be pretty simple. The DLL is already there. We can verify that. So just to show you, here you can see that that last DLL is basically there. And the next part is going to be to restart the client's computer, our target computer. Why do we do that? Because we need that computer to connect back to us while we are listening. So let's set up the listener here. And then computer is going to be back to us with a full set of privileges, being technically a local system. So question is, why this is happening? Well, there are many reasons, but eventually, let's see first how that connection is gonna proceed. So over there, you can see that on the left side, the connection is already established. We did not even log on yet, but we are already at that point, local system. So summarizing our story over there, here we were able, through phishing, the most popular, the #1, according to many reports, access the infrastructure. Yet at the very beginning, we were just a user, but just because we were able to find the leaking point, not even, as I mentioned, vulnerability, but slight misconfiguration, we were able to become more privileged. What's next? Well, then we're going to be in that network. It's a different position to have. It's a fantastic position to have for a hacker, so that later we are able to also attack systems that are maybe misconfigured, maybe vulnerable. Misconfiguration is a vulnerability, but it's harder to manage, because when we fix things, when we patch things, problem is kind of gone, and the misconfiguration stays, so it's even worse. Attacks are very inexpensive nowadays. You are able to see here examples of prices. For example, here you can see that whenever we are seeking for a lead, so the target to attack, that one lead over there, so the PC target open in a certain company, costs approximately, and that's the minimal price, 13 cents. So it's not really expensive to get to the company. Also, attackers are selling leads on the dark web. You pay, for example, from $500 to $3,000 in order to earn a couple of $1 million, because the point of entry is known, and then someone maybe is going to use it for encrypting data with ransomware. So long story short, whenever we are thinking about that perspective, let me show you one more attack, which is technically the next stage after the attack that we were explaining over here. So once the hackers are in the network, question is, what can we do next? So in this case, and this is actually one of my favorite attacks. To be fair, I'm always starting pen tests with this attack because it's almost always working. We call this attack SMB Relay. And within the SMB Relay, we've got simply one connection over here that is related with the traffic that we do not encrypt, and that's the SMB traffic, that's one thing. And the second, we rely at the same time on NTLM version 2 protocol, which is used within the infrastructure, but at the same time, it's not really mitigated. So that's a little bit of a problem here. Now, the next part that we need to know is that whenever we are thinking, of course, about the situation with the attack, let me actually get back to it, then the moment is that we need to make sure that not only we are signing our SMB traffic, but also we need to make sure that our traffic is also isolated from the other devices. Therefore, any segmentation within a network, this is something that we would like to achieve over here. The next part over there was going to be also related with what kind of code we are able to execute in the network. And that particular thing can be managed by, for example, solutions like App Locker, or solutions, for example, like device guard, application control, and so on. And that is something that we have to have for addressing the current threats. So whenever we are thinking about the possibility to be in the network while we are already on the user's workstation, let's see what kind of options we've got whenever, for example, we access the solution as a regular user. And when we do that, we've got a possibility to extract the passwords that are coming from the browser of the user, because the user just stored the passwords in the browser. So eventually, whenever we are analyzing that, then there's lots of escalation points that we are able to make, and these escalation points are different. We might just be having access to the user's application, or we might be having access to the further steps of the infrastructure. When we think about what kind of roles people have in the infrastructure, that reminds me one more story where I was doing the penetration test for the bank, and I managed to get access to the user's computer, but the problem was that that user was an SAP administrator, and this is something that allowed me to let in to the next stage of the attack. So let's have a look. So over here, you can see that there is an SMB Relay X script, and eventually we can see that we're going to be targeting the host, which has IP address 10.10.10 to 50. And over there, we're going to be also exploiting a reverse shell. So this is a shell that we have generated before with our custom tool, which is also publicly available and free. And within this particular shell, when the user is going to execute it, it's going to simply connect back to the hacker. So the logic, it's easy. Now, the funny part is that this attack works so well almost in every infrastructure. This, on the Metasploit side, we have set up simply a listener. Yes, so here the only thing we'll need to do is just to do exploit. So let me show you, of course, how this attack looks live. So the next part, it's going to be that the only thing, because we rely on the NTLM version 2 protocol, the only thing we will need to do as a user somewhere in the network is to browse literally any resource by doing / IP address. This triggers NTLM version 2 authentication and the authentication challenge and response mechanism, and thing that we will need to do is to grab the response and relay it to the target. Just this. So it's not really very requiring attack. Now, exploit, so listener here is started. Here we are running the SMB Relay X scripts from in-packet master set. And then the next part, it's going to be on the network side to browse any type of resource like / IP, as I've mentioned. And this is going to work perfectly because we are capturing that authentication response. And the next part, as you can see, we're going to be connecting to the hacker. So that usually takes approximately 15 seconds, something like that. So that here you can see that we've got a Metasploit started, and the moment where we hit that IP, then immediately, and this is happening now, we are having a Metapreter session 1 open. And again, what can we do? List processes that are running on that host. So we are finding the host, we're finding the host for our code, and here it's the 3136, for example, that's running as last system, and we can get into the migrate 3136, and we are almost there. The next part is to run shell in order to see who we are in that operating system. So this is a very easy attack, but very, very effective. What's the precondition? Just to be in that network. So question is, of course, are we ready for that part? And here, if we type in who am I, you can see we are system. Summarizing. Well, this attack is very challenging because it relies on protocols that we use, it relies on solutions that we use, and it's not a vulnerability. That's just how it is. And the thing is that currently, when we think about the challenges that we've got in cybersecurity, we have to combine many technologies all together. Not only we need to have an efficient monitoring that gathers logs from every single device and server and can intelligently, hopefully based on machine learning, recognize the threat, That's absolutely a goal for 2022. But the next part is that we need to have a well-designed incident response plan where we're able to execute it with appropriate level of knowledge and appropriate tools on board. So simply saying in different words, if we are under attack, what do we do? What kind of plan do we execute? How do we gather information? So that centralized monitoring is definitely a goal nowadays based on what we see and based on what we work with our customers. Whenever we are thinking, of course, about other threats, what is, I think, the goal for companies in 2022 would be simply to not only revise their incident response plans, but also to revise their pen testing goals. Why? Pen testing used to be just getting into the side of infrastructure and that's it. But nowadays, pen testing becomes a very complex service which has a couple of goals. One of them is going to be to review our identities that we use in the infrastructure. Second is going to be to review some other devices that we use. IoT, it's not a new subject, but it brings the threat to the organizations constantly. And at the end, attacks are simply increasing. Therefore, we are dealing with hostile environment, so we have to be all the time up to date, and we have to have tools that give us knowledge about simply what's going on. Whenever we are thinking about the next demonstration over there, what I would love to show you, it's actually also one of my favorite attacks. I have to mention that within our team, as far as we know, we are the only team in the world and the first team in the world that fully reverse engineered the cryptographic platform of Windows. So if you guys will have any questions, I'm happy to share those. What I would love to show you, under which conditions we are able to extract credentials from the operating system, and let's talk about what can we do about it. So in here, you are able to see that this is ChromePass. ChromePass is a Nearsoft free solution which displays as password in Google Chrome. In this case, because I violated the ways how I logged into Windows, I am not able to get access to the user's password. No, normally, if you run software as this user, you can see the password. Under this particular condition, for example, offline access, or you are not that user, but you are someone else, you are not able to get access to these credentials. Let me show you something. Each of you guys, you've got, I bet, domains. And eventually, within the domains, when we have the domain locally, what's the point is that there is actually a certificate which we have discovered, and you are able to export that certificate into the file. This certificate is actually responsible for encrypting every password of the user in the organization. So let's import it. And in this case, we're going to learn what is inside. So we don't have to do it, but let's see basically what's inside. And that particular certificate is in every domain because it's working underneath the new credentials logon. This is a super serious attack because it's related with one simple fact here. You cannot change it. You have to prevent it around. Let's see how that certificate looks like. So over here, we're going to start Cert Manager, so Cert MGR MSC, to see basically the role of that certificate. And if you open up certificates, you can see this is the certificate where it's issued to nobody, issued by nobody. It's already expired. Probably some of you would ask, can you renew it? No, you cannot. Can I delete it? Whatever? No, you cannot. That's what it is. If it leaks, you've got a big problem. So every organization where domain has been hacked needs monitoring. So here, we've got ChromePass with no password. My goal is going to be to get this password back of the users, to the in this case, LinkedIn. So what we're going to do, we will at that point get to the user's so-called master key. Everybody has this kind of a key in their profile, and that particular key we're going to copy because we will need to decrypt it with this certificate from the domain and encrypt it back with the current user's password hash, and then we are done. Yeah, it's really powerful because there's, as I mentioned, nothing you can do about it, but you have to monitor it and prevent it by, for example, working with code execution prevention. So let's see what we can do with this particular certificate. We're going to go to the CQ Tools DP API, and then we've got over there the CQ hash calc in order to calculate the hash of the current user password. So that's going to be the one that you see on the top. And then we're going to use the CQ master key ID, where we are giving this master key to decrypt the user's passwords in Chrome and encrypt it back with the current user's password hash. And then we are pretty much done. And then we are specifying that certificate from the domain. So this is the last step. And eventually here, that particular hash we are just specifying in here. Now the next part is related with just running it and then executing the replacement. So we've got over here the new master key that has been generated. So we will just need to change it, and then we are done with the demonstration. So eventually we are flipping the file. So we are just replacing it, and then we're going to rename it. So we will remove the name AD modified for the newly generated key. And then the last step is to change the permissions so that it's system and hidden, and we are done. So why we're doing this? Because what I wanted to show you is how important is monitoring not only the whole domain, but also different servers that are out there building us a full attack picture. In here, if we refresh it, you guys are gonna see that we are indeed getting our password back. So what if, just imagine, this was possible for every user by having just this one key to the whole infrastructure. And the point is that it is possible. With this, I would like to summarize the presentation, because what we have to focus on nowadays, it's not only monitoring of the whole components of the infrastructure, centralizing them in one, and then having some smart technology that's going to revise them, for example, based in a cloud that is relying on machine learning, artificial intelligence detection, but also the ones going to tell us in the best possible way what kind of things we should do, because we are under attack and these dots are connected and these events are correlated. Another part is to review our pen testing goals. As I mentioned, that they should focus on identity review, they should focus on discovering every possible entrance path, not just rely on getting in. And the third goal is to revise our incident response plans, because we see a huge increase within many different spheres of an attacks, not only through phishing, ransomware, but also through vendors, which I'm pretty sure you've seen and you've heard many times before. So in summary, continuous monitoring, pen tests with the change goals, and also the incident response plan effectively working. This is what I would put as also my personal priority for customers, and hopefully you're going to pick the similar priorities for yourself. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like to get more instructor hacking videos, they are free, available on our blog. And this is Paula Januszkiewicz. Thank you so much for listening.